This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. So excited to be speaking with Damian Lewis about Wolf Hall, The Mirror and the Light. How are you, Damian?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
How does it feel to return to play a character that you played almost, or I guess, a full decade ago at this point?
Sort of new and sort of seamless at the same time. Coming back with all the same cast and crew made it very easy. You sort of settled immediately into a rhythm of working that was immediately recognizable, and but with the sort of the fun, if you like, of playing the next part of the story.
What can you tell me about your own relationship with Henry VIII and this era in general?
Well, really, what I know as a schoolboy, because Tudor history, obviously, we all get taught about that. And but then through Hillary's books, this is, the important thing to remember about this is Hillary's reimagining of a period of history. It's a little peek behind the curtain, if you like. It's historic fiction, um, and historical fiction, and with the novel idea of sort of the POV of this period of history coming through Thomas Cromwell, and making him, more or less a sympathetic character, or someone at least that we want to live and be with. And so Henry is very much objectified in these two series. It's every what will Henry do next? What will our king do next? Will the sun will he shine brightly, or will it be an overcast day? We don't know. And so that sort of tapping into that mercurial, unpredictable nature of Henry was really um, sort of central to what I to the drama in the show, really. The watchfulness, the hyper awareness, hyper alertness of Thomas Cromwell, this creature watching, listening, sniffing, smelling, and this great bear, lion, uh, bulldog, king figure in the center of it all, who might just bite your head off, or roll over and have his tummy tickled. So those that was really the dynamic.
How much do you feel like the physical wardrobe of this character affects your performance?
Hugely. Those Holbein paintings of Henry is really what we based his shape on. You realize Henry was a big man anyway. He was broader than me naturally. Um, and certainly in this second season, I was filled out with a big foam suit, that I was zipped up and sort of stuck to me, and then continued to have all these beautiful, broad cloaks um, that Joanna Eatwell made, and the fur ermine, and the fur and everything else, and the hat, everything we did, and even the beard this season, everything was done to broaden me as much as possible, uh, and sort of heading towards that Holbein portrait, because the width of the man is is critical, I think, to um, you know to how we see him, but also, of course, you know psychologically important. That Henry created that sense of magnificence, that sense of that size, um, to inspire awe in people, which he did.
I think he's definitely unpredictable. He definitely inspires awe. Do you think overall it's a positive portrayal? Is it an endearing take on this man?
Henry's too complicated to say whether you like or dislike him. He's uh he's fascinating. Um he he was a man who was never supposed to be king. He was the second son. He was going to be in the cloth. As a result, going into man of the cloth. As a result, he knows the Bible, the liturgy, the scriptures better than almost anyone else, any cleric in the land, because he had studied it all. Um, he's had an amazing life. He grows up, he marries his dead brother's wife, um, divorces her to separate and from the Roman Catholic Church, from Rome, to create an entirely new religion. Uh, and falls in love, really fancies this new woman in his life. Anne Boleyn is then sort of uncertain about Protestantism and his place in the world. Interestingly, when he went up to the altar for communion, he still took the blood of Christ. He still took the bread of the body of Christ. So he never went the whole distance with Protestantism like the Lutherans were doing at the time. He executes her. He's desperate for a son, marries another woman who he actually rather adores, Jane Seymour. She gives him a son. The son then dies. It goes on and on and on. And at the same time, an increasing paranoia about England's place in Europe. The truth is, and he knows it, is we're not the superpower we like to pretend Tudor England was. The French, Francois, Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, Suleiman the Magnificent, the Turk, they're all more powerful than we are. And Henry is this great sort of illusionist, and he realizes he's just going to portray this symbol of great power and magnificent majesty, really single-handedly through him, through the image of him. And and he succeeds in doing that. He succeeds in doing that. But, you know, uh, the burden of state, of governance weighs on him, having to produce a male heir, his own insecurities about his sexual performance, about his own virility, weighs on him. And I think, deep down, just wants to hang out with the guys, wants a woman to fall in love with him and give him an opportunity to send her a love poem, write her a song, uh, you know, just be a normal dude for a bit, And I think he craves that. And so if there is something sweet in this portrayal of Henry, I think it comes through that side of his character, a slight neediness just that moment when he gets all dressed up and he goes ta-da, and he wants everyone to be amazed and to laugh and love him, and everyone's going, oh yeah, well done, your Majesty. And obviously they all knew it was him all along, and he sort of knows that. Very susceptible, very sensitive to Anne of Cleves' first reaction to him, which is probably, Jesus, who is this limping, sort of, ulcerated, maybe slightly smelly, sort of old guy coming towards me. She's this young, just beautiful young girl. Whether she's beautiful or not doesn't matter, but she's young, 21, 19, whatever she is, just off the boat from Germany. And, you know, so very complex, very complex. It's up to the audience to decide whether he's sympathetic or not. I certainly haven't tried to make him sympathetic. That's not the point. He just is what he is. And I think he's magnificent for it. But flawed, hell yeah. He kills his wives and you know, and pillaged and marauded his way through the abbeys and monasteries, centuries, was a vandal, just a cultural vandal. As was Cromwell. Cromwell did it for him. But no, uh, he is the sun in this. He is the mirror and the light, as Hilary says. He is the mirror and the light in this show. But he's the unpredictable central bear, you know, lion, bulldog, and Thomas Cromwell is the man who, coming from nothing, has brilliantly and expertly woven his way through the court. And we love Cromwell. We're with Cromwell because he's a blue collar guy who's just, sticking two fingers. He's giving the finger to everybody all the way up. And he said, the king wants me. The king needs me. And I say this a bit facetiously, but it's true. The king, social mobility was a thing, both Wolsey, the son of a butcher, Cromwell, the son of a blacksmith. He wanted those guys around him. Be honest with me. None of this other lot will be honest with me. None of them. They're jostling for their position in court. Sound familiar?
Well,
You know?
yes, certainly to modern times, but I also, when you started talking about power, I was thinking a lot about billions. And as you describe more and more of this, Axe, I feel like in so many ways bears a lot of similarities to this character, and especially with if you sub in Chuck for Cromwell, you have somebody who's not good but is still definitely a nemesis. And I'm curious, especially since you basically spent almost the entirety of your time between the first series of this show and the second series on that show, if you see any through lines, between those characters.
Well, there are similarities, but it's more complicated than that because actually Chuck is the Ivy League. Chuck is the Ivy League, born to the manor. Yeah, to the manor born guy, silver spoon, who goes into public office, and Bobby is the blue collar guy who goes the private sector route and is king, becomes king, or one of them. He's part of the oligarchy, anyway. Uh uh so so it's difficult. I think in I think in the end, you end up. I think if anyone roots for Bobby Axelrod, I think it's because he is the Cromwell character. He is the guy that comes from nowhere, works his way through the Ivy League, old institutions of America, um, to fulfill the American promise, which is you can come from anywhere and you can be king. Although that's a problematic metaphor for you guys. You can become president, but metaphorically you can be the king. And wherever you come from, that's the American dream, isn't it? So um, uh, he is the embodiment of that, and Cromwell is, I suppose, is the most sort of, I suppose, he most symbolic of an American ideal, actually, of anybody in the show.
Well, on the note of America versus UK, I've watched you in Homeland, of course, and Life before that, and other series. And I'm curious if you feel like there's a substantial difference just in terms of production and how everything else works when you're working, in the UK versus America.
Uh that's a blurred. The lines are more blurred now because streaming has taken over, and the streamers, do co-productions with the BBC and this, that, and the other. I would say, I would say, generally speaking, it would be uncontroversial to say that the US TV shows have always had more money to make TV with, than we have. Um, and but then generally speaking, the system is the same.
Well, what are you watching when you have time? What do you like on television these days?
I'm always behind. I'm halfway through White Lotus. I'm quite enjoying Slow Horses. But again, I'm 3 years behind. Uh, that's all I have time for. Those two.
What's next for
What
you
are you watching?
role-wise? Oh,
Make
good
me a
question.
recommendation. You're the guy who
There's
watches TV for a living. Make me a recommendation.
That's true. There's so much good stuff out there. I really like Hacks. That's a wonderful show.
Yeah.
There's just somebody somewhere is the one to check out though. If you're looking for something a little less well known, I would definitely try that one.
Okay. Somebody somewhere. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking a few minutes to speak with me today, Damien. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.